Hey everybody, this is Marina, your podcast host at UNBOSSED. Here we go. At UNBOSSED, I interview amazing women in Chicago. There is so much woman power in this city that I want to provide these women a platform to tell their story. Please connect with us and please consider supporting by sharing, liking, commenting the podcast. Tell all your Netflix friends and family about it. Submit a recommendation for a guest, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and donate by clicking on the anchor link and help me continue to make great episodes. I hope you enjoy and welcome to the show. Hey everybody, this is Marina, your host at UNBOSSED. Today my guest is Sandee Kastrul. She is the founder and president of i.c.Stars. Sandee is an innovative nonprofit leader that has led this technology training program that was funded in 1999 to prepare inner kids, adults, for technology careers and community leadership. She's an early pioneer of the social enterprise model. i.c.Stars has graduated more than 300 community leaders and will expand into multiple cities and continue to expand because it has expanded already. They're already in Milwaukee. Under Sandee's leadership, i.c.Stars was highlighted by the U.S Chamber of Commerce for its work in youth employment. She's a proud board member of Good City, the Ryan Banks Academy, and HICC, Hispanic Innovation Center in Chicago. She's also an advisor for the Axelson Center in Chicago Ideas Week and the Experience Institute. Sandee is really like a powerhouse here in Chicago. In this episode, you'll hear me talking to her about everything and anything related to youth and empowering youth. Speaking of youth, you'll also hear my baby in the background. I apologize for that. She's been home, sometimes sick, sometimes teething, and I wanted to give you a heads up about that. Thank you for listening, and I hope you connect with me on my website. Talk to you soon. Hey everybody, this is Marina, your podcast host at UNBOSSED. Today my guest is Sandee Kastrul, president and co-founder of i.c.Stars. Welcome to the show, Sandee.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I am super excited. i.c.Stars is a foundation organization here in Chicago. And I was looking forward to this conversation this week for many reasons, but especially for the fact because you've built an amazing organization that is foundational to here in Chicago.
Thank you.
Yeah. Would you tell us a little bit about you and your background? Did you grow up in Chicago?
I did. I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in Rogers Park. Yay!
Yay! Shout out to Rogers Park.
I went to Chicago Public Schools, and I fell in love with the arts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was really fortunate to go to the Academy of Performing Arts right when the school opened, which was really nice. And it was kind of after Fame. Remember that movie, like Fame, about the kids from the Performing Arts School in New York?
Yes.
And so it was all the rage. Like everybody wanted to go to a Fame school. And what was really cool about it is in learning to be an artist, I think I learned more about like the creative process and the art of becoming that would impact my life in so many ways because of that foundational learning of the creative process and everything else.
Nice.
And so I see it all the time as an entrepreneur, as an educator, and as a curriculum designer. It's all baked in.
Yeah, totally. So what art was your art?
Well, I don't know if you can guess, but it was theater.
I admire so much people that do theater. It's wow. I don't know. To me, it's just like one of those things that I'm like, I cannot do that, but I'm so glad there are people in the world that can, and it gets really, really fun. What was your favorite part of theater?
Well, it's funny because I've done I've done improv, I've done comedy, but I really like the classics, like the Greeks and Shakespeare and kind of like being in your whole emotional state. that's really quite lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just side note, improv, stand up, so hard. I challenged myself one year. I was like, I'm going to learn how to do stand up because it's fascinating. It's going to push me to my limits. And I took this 8 weeks class at Second City.
Yeah,
which by the way is a fantastic organization. I hope it was in troubles, I think, this past year, but I hope everything went well and it stays within our landmarks. But it is fascinating how you have to push yourself to really like get stuff out of yourself in order to do improv and to do stand up. Mm-hmm. And bombing in front of an audience is talking about like business flops is nothing compared to like you being on a stage with the lights.
Yes, and you're getting sweaty in the head, and you're like, oh my gosh! And like 1 minute is like 10 hours because you're just like hearing the vacuum of "you suck." Like it's terrible.
And it's like it's great training for like
it is
business life. Do you think?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think that, we learn in business school and as entrepreneurs to fail often, fail fast. Like the greatest lessons come from failure. And I'll tell you, I think that that's true. And the best way to get there is by, doing improv and stand-up comedy because you will fail. And that experience is worth 4 years in that 1 minute. So yes,
it changed me. It changed me completely, and I'm so glad. And so you went to art school, right? And I also noticed that that you started as a diversity trainer for the Illinois Resource Center back in 1997, 1999.
And why you gotta throw my dates out there?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. The reason why I said this. Okay. There's a reason. Usually I would never say. The reason why I said those dates is because it's like, what is year this is? 2021, right? And it feels like it was something that was just invented. Diversity training, right? In some ways, it just came out, right? Everybody's in diversity training now. And so when I saw that, I really just wanted to ask you, it's like, what do you notice differences between diversity training back when you were really like, you're still really young, but back in the day, and what diversity training is now, right? And you've been doing this for so long that I really was just curious about that. If you noticed that.
Well, absolutely, and it's fascinating actually to be to have done this work so long ago and then to come back to it now, because, like you said, it seems like it just started, right? Like like diversity directors didn't exist before, and what were we doing in diversity before George Floyd? When in fact, of course, it existed before. And that I was doing diversity work for school corporations. And in this way, I think the education system is far ahead of business because it wasn't like we have to get diversity in our schools, right? Like we dealt with that years ago when we integrated our schools, and some of them are still not integrated. But school is maybe one of the only places that are truly a melting pot.
Yeah.
Right? Because, everybody who lives in the community or everybody who goes to that school is just kind of thrown together and it's like, we'll work it out, and then we're like, well, why are those kids all sitting at that table and why don't they all, And so schools really needed to figure out how do we not just manage diversity, but how do we use diversity as a modality for learning? And I remember really quite clearly saying to a group of a couple hundred teachers, like, diversity isn't for your black and brown students. It's for your white students. because the world is changing. And by the time that they are adults, if they don't know how to work with and work for people who are different than them, they will not succeed. And that's a very different message than, than we think of diversity training today. It's like, how do we attract, how do we retain, and how do we advance diverse people in our organizations? Not as a matter of survival, but as a matter of this is the right thing to do, or we want to be more innovative. And so, we're talking about like a span of almost 30 years where, the world has changed. Like we went from not having cell phones to everything being on demand within our fingertips, and that we can communicate with anyone around the world. And it doesn't cost a fortune. Like, remember, like that phone call is going to be a $12, dents, where now, we're using technology to bring us closer every day. And so there's a whole host of challenges, because now we're talking about global diversity. We're talking about, how do we stop thinking of everything as sort of Western centered? How do we stop kind of like thinking about the model being the white middle class paradigm? That in a global world, we need to open our minds to thinking about other people's experiences and how to leverage that to do more, right?
Yeah.
I think this is one area we can learn a lot from education.
Yeah, and I wonder if you had any tips, or not tips, but top learnings from your time in education.
Yeah.
And that we can impart to corporate settings. It's like, what is education doing really well in terms of diversity that we could apply to the workplace?
I think that what education does really well is, if you clear away all the noise, what we're talking about is individuals who can contribute. And that learning from each other is just as important as learning from our books and learning from technology.
Okay.
And that you're right, like our interpersonal relationships are a core piece of learning. And that's what education has figured out, like experiential learning, transformational learning, all of these things that are miles from, answer the questions at the back of the book. I think that same sort of thinking in the sort of world of work would enable our companies and our organizations to think differently about the assets that everyone else is bringing to the table, and that it's a process, not a goal. So the process of learning with, learning for, and learning from each other, it's not being harnessed in its full capacity.
Wow. I love that. That's really good. And so in this case, you're talking about diversity like at its highest level, like diversity of thought, of experiences, of background, of information. And I wonder if you had any thoughts about taking it down to like just simply diversifying race. And, like if that even matters at some point, because maybe if you focus on the top line approach that you just described, maybe the rest will follow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that we've banked on that notion for too long, and things haven't changed. I mean, we're in IT, right? Like, we know that in 20 years, diversity in IT hasn't really changed much.
Yeah.
And that there's been a lot of work to bring girls into STEM, to do work like i.c.Stars is doing, where we're training underserved and underrepresented folks to be in technology. And yet, and still, there are these, cyber ceilings, I guess.
Yeah.
I totally just made that up, but
the cyber ceilings. I like that. It's kind of like the metaverse ceiling version for technology.
So I think that, I think that there's sort of three levels, right? Like there is the systems level, right? Mm-hmm. Like the policies and things that reward privilege and the sort of norm and actually are structured to maintain the wealth and the status of certain people within our society, and for others not.
Absolutely.
Everything from like redlining to, the way
segregation. Yeah.
And then I think there's this middle category that is all about sort of community.
Yeah.
And this includes everything from you're in or you're out of the community, inside of the community, how we oppress ourselves.
Yeah.
How we have your skin is too light, you're too dark, you're too this, you're not black enough, you're not this enough. And all these ways that we sort of minimize and devalue each other.
Yeah.
And then I think that the basic level is really just one-to-one. Like this microaggression at me as an individual hurt me. I feel less than. I feel hurt. And so, typically we're looking at that third level where it's you and me as individuals, and I'm so angry and I'm raging, and that makes you rage, and then we have this like rage party, versus really looking at things from a systems level, like what's at play here?
Yeah.
Let's follow the narrative. Who's setting this narrative? Where is it coming from?
Okay.
And then how does it affect my community? And how does it affect me? So I think in essence, if we're able to think bigger than ourselves, again, like kind of getting out of our own paradigm.
Like be a little bit less narcissistic in our thoughts. We could achieve clarity around action almost, because I think part of it is also like there is some type of, well, I don't know what else to do. I don't know what to do.
That's right. And so I gave up my power because I don't think I have any.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you said that. Yeah. It's like almost like, I don't know. I somebody else did this many years ago and it's not me. Or,
Yeah. And this is how it's always been done.
Yeah.
And I can't possibly change the system. When in fact, there's that wonderful quote that says, a small committed group of people, right? Like, I'm totally screwing up the quote, but it's sometimes that's the only people that can, right?
Yeah.
But so, I think that is, we can actually change things from looking at things from a systems level. Yeah. And I think that working in technology makes us uniquely qualified to do that because we're doing systems thinking work all the time. And that's the muscle that we've worked to figure out the inputs and the outputs and how the systems are designed and what the dependencies are. Like all of those things certainly apply to technology work, but they also apply to community organizing, to change agency, to social justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the application there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And the quote, by the way, is just Google it. Never doubt a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals that can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. Yes. Margaret Mead.
Mead, yes.
I actually don't know. I don't know that that author. That's a beautiful quote. I've never heard it before, and I'm so thankful you brought it up.
Oh, well, thank you for finding it, so I didn't just ruin Margaret Mead's great.
It's so good. It's a very powerful quote. You've been in the. Do you consider you've been in the game of changing system for 20 years?
I would like to think that. Yes.
Okay, great. Because my next question is that how does one change a system?
So I love that you asked me that question. Like, I don't think I've ever been asked that before. Like, are you the agent for 20 years? So I think that being a change agent for over 20 years, disguised as technology, like developing technologists and everything, is about developing change agents by developing systems thinkers. And technology is a beautiful sort of cover because it leads to great jobs. It enables, deep and powerful thinking on a daily level. Mm-hmm. And it's, in education, one of the great ways that we know that it's working is when our learners can apply information from one space to another. Mm. That's a higher level of thinking.
Yeah.
So if we're able to take, systems thinking and all the great process and methodology that's embedded in doing technology work and apply it to the communities that we come from, like, right at the end of the day, it's about solving problems and building solutions.
Yes.
And so my method of change is to develop the next generation of people who are solving problems and building solutions in business, in technology, and in our communities. So we are the ones we've been waiting for, and that rather than moving out of the community, rather than saying success is getting out of the hood, what if success was investing back in
the hood?
And transforming our very community. So rather than taking out the change makers, taking out and leaving all these holes in our community, let's not plug those holes, but let's build the community with our leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So I heard a couple of things. I heard in order to change a system, we need people to change themselves, which takes education. And I completely cannot agree with you more. And at the same time, I'm like, education is, we need to level up our education system, especially in Chicago. Like my three girls are going to public schools it's just not where it's supposed to be, right? Like it feels like we could do a lot better than what we're doing to be competitive in a 21st century technology market, like it is, like a global market that we're facing today. Yeah. And so I love how you're for your organization and please after this tell us, like specifically tell the audience if they don't know what i.c.Stars is, give us a little bit about i.c.Stars. But through organization, you're developing these leaders that will go then on and building those bridges across industries, right? That will then change systems and improve conditions of people back into the hood, right? Because it's like sometimes you have to get out to get the education and then invest back into it, right? To gain perspective as well about different things. And I think that's fantastic, to be honest. This is like obviously like a long process, right? Like it feels like it's gonna take a long time to get from where we want to be to where we want to be. And putting those leaders in those places is going to be critical for that purpose. Based on where we are right now and given the opportunity that we're given with the pandemic, is there, or do you see an opportunity that we have been given to accelerate some of these changes? Because there's nothing like a crisis to actually make things shake things up even a little bit more. Is there an opportunity there that we could take to accelerate some of the change that we want to see? And if so, if you've noticed any, what is it?
Yeah, so thank you for this question. I'm a former teacher, and so I am always going to be down with the teachers and I think that, teachers have always kind of had a rough go. Like
Yeah.
people think, teachers are all bad, that we're just, that we get our summers off, that, there's all of this kind of like, down with the teachers union, all of these things. But I think what the pandemic did was make every parent realize how hard it is.
I love
That
it. Yeah.
this is not like people just showing up and being like, friends, let's color. Like, you are stuck in your homes with your children and like, oh my gosh, like, how do I do this? And this, and that was just 1 or 2 or 3 kids, right? Like imagine
20, 30,
20, 30, 40 kids because our classrooms are overstuffed. And so, I bring that up because I think that's the perfect platform for disruption, is that we all know now how hard it is. We all know that it's not like ABC, 1, 2, 3, follow this and do this, that we have to engage our children in a way that's meaningful to them. Mm-hmm. We have to look at student-centered design. Mm-hmm. Like we know our kids and we know how they learn. And so really being able to meet them there and blow up their mind, like, wow, instead of it being like, oh, I have to do this. Like anytime we hear our kids saying we have to do this, that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. What is I get to do this and when do I do this is about meeting them in a place that we are blowing up what's possible. Mm. And they're stepping into an adventure. And that adventure, any good adventure means that you learn about yourself, you learn about the world, and you learn about what's possible.
Nice.
And so I think that, we are going to come back to looking at education, not as more of a babysitting kind of thing, but more of a way to make sure that our kids have more than we did.
Yeah. Investing in future generations. I like that a lot. Yeah. So, okay. Tell us about i.c.Stars. What are you doing? What have you been doing? How did it start? First, how did this start? How did you start i.c.Stars?
Okay. So, i.c.Stars, we find talent, we train talent, and we put talent to work in technology careers.
Perfect.
So we were founded in 98.
Don't date yourself.
I was 5. And if you remember, like 1998 was crazy, right? Like there were .coms everywhere. The world had been declared flat
again for the 3rd time.
And that we were looking at like 25-year-old executives who were going IPO for everything under the sun.com. And there was a shortage of technology workers because everybody needed a website.
Yeah.
Like this was a whole new frontier.
Yeah. And by the way, everybody listening, there still is a shortage of technology workers. So join in.
Right? Yeah. Like come to the party. Like,
yeah. Come get this. Come get this money.
Yeah. So there was an incredible opportunity. And at the same time, though, I think that companies were realizing that they needed folks who could, as I like to say, walk between worlds. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of the ability to move between cultures, to really understand people who may have grown up with a different set of experiences and conditions and leverage that, not just be in the same place, but be able to, weave a tapestry based on that diversity. Mm-hmm. And who knows how to do that better than us, than those of us who are considered minorities, where the world of school was different than the world of home, was different than the world of work, was different than the way that we act with our friends. Like code switching is an incredibly valuable asset in the world of business.
Yeah. And
that the more worlds we can walk between, the more opportunities we're able to make for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, here I had, been teaching and working with communities of underserved folks and underrepresented folks. And yet, I was seeing brilliant, resilient people every single day that, there were no opportunities for them on the other side because of where their school was or the resources that their school had. And so I could see a really great opportunity here.
Right.
But also to develop leaders. Right?
Absolutely. So, and as i.c.Stars a non-for-profit? Yeah.
So we're a nonprofit, 501c3, and we launched our first cohort in 2000. And everybody went to go work at .coms. And, we're a boot camp that's 4 months long, intensive, 12 hours a day. And then we do job placement for folks on the other side.
Wow.
So part of that intensity is intentional.
Yeah.
So, folks needed to go to work. If they had 2 years, 2 years to be in college, they would. And so we've crammed 2 years of an associate's degree into 4 months. And we do this through project-based experiential learning. So every cohort has a client that they work with. And the client gives them a business problem. And the cohort of 20 people are divided up into 4 teams, they form their own consulting companies, and then they're competing with each other for the RFP.
Oh, that's cool. Do you do coding as well, or?
Yeah. So it's so programming is the core.
Yeah.
So programming fundamentals, but each client is going to have a different platform, right? So this last group in Chicago had an RPA project, a robotic process automation project, and really cool API, and they were but the group before was a .NET project, and so that's always changing.
Yeah.
But everybody learns front end development, and so they have classes in the evenings, night schools, basically all the fundamentals. But then the work during the day is driven by the client deliverable. So the client will say, all right, let's see 20 user stories by Wednesday. And they're like, what the heck is a user story? And they use their resources to find out what it is and kind of slug their way through. And then the last mile will have a subject matter expert who kind of comes in. But just it's the difference between school and work, right? School's all about you and work is about everybody else.
Yeah.
But also school, you're getting information for some use later. Whereas work, you are working and then you got to get the information to enable your work.
Yeah.
And so making that shift in both dimensions, on the people side and on the learning and working side, how do we sort of make that shift? And that's a big deal. Really being able to learn and relearn, know how you learn, and it has everything to do with how successful we are in our position.
Absolutely. I really like the way you structured this. It sounds really applicable to today's workplace because you're bringing in real world problems and there's not fake pull over the internet type of problem. I was wondering, what is the success rate that you've seen with i.c.Stars based on are you have some metrics that you can share about people getting hired or finding placement or moving on to find other opportunities?
Yeah. So I'd love to brag about our success metrics.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We have a 90% placement rate for our graduates.
Wow, that's pretty high.
Yeah, it's awesome. Our last group in Chicago had 100% placement because, the market is so hot.
It's so hot, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have
sorry, I have a question that you may or may not be able to answer. Just let me know. But my question is, do you know the average salary of the people that come out of the program?
You're queuing me up so perfectly.
You're welcome.
I don't know the average number, but I will say that on average, people see a 300% increase in pay.
Wow.
from before the program to after, and that's in 6 months.
And for people that cannot do math, it's at 300%, it's basically 3 times. So if you're making $50K a year right now, you could be coming out making $150,000. Just to be clear.
Right. That's right. Thank you. And then so a 90% placement, 300% increase, and an 80% retention rate. And so that means that our folks are staying in their companies or in the industry longer than most folks in IT. They come to the table with a whole lot of loyalty and excitement about being a knowledge worker. But the 3 metrics that I'm most proud of is we have a 99% volunteer rate. So 99% of all of our graduates are volunteering in their community.
Wow.
Either policy work, or they are volunteering, or teaching or mentoring, or setting up computer labs in the community.
Yeah.
Or they're starting businesses and then hiring from the community. So 99%. And then in our alumni group, we have over 70 homeowners.
70. Oh,
70.
Oh, wow.
70 homeowners. So people are receiving public assistance. Now they're buying homes, and they're buying homes in the community that we came from, right? So it's changing everything.
That's so cool.
And and the last one is I think we're at about 67 entrepreneurs. So 67 businesses have been started in our alumni pool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Here's what I love about this. I'll tell you the truth. The reason why I like it, I think full time, it's tough, right? People hearing this, well, I have to how am I gonna eat within the 4 months, right? So that's challenging. So I wish for one day, potentially, this could be a paid type of thing that they do for 4 months. I think that
and we do. We pay a stipend.
Oh, lovely. There you go. Yeah.
So that nobody starves on my watch.
Perfect. Yeah, that's amazing. Even better. Hey folks, I apologize for the baby noises. It happens. I'm a mom. My baby is home. It's COVID. Please keep listening. Here we are.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Sorry. This is what happens when you're a mom of a 7-month-old baby.
Oh,
yeah.
That's all she needed.
Yeah, she needs some mommy. Okay. And we're back lining up i.c.Stars. I am so happy you're paying all your students. All your students, is that correct? Yeah, you're paying all your students a stipend. And I'm really excited about it because it's really rough going away for 4 months full time, right? And not potentially being able to work. But what is most exciting to me is the fact that, as like I was saying, to be a person in tech, sometimes you have to study for 4 years in college and then 2 years in masters and all this stuff. But Google, what do you call it? The big fans, the Facebook, the Amazon, Netflix, and Googles of the world, and plus other tech companies, actually have a low barrier of entry in terms of entering tech. And so I want everybody to know that, for instance, most companies are dropping even the college degree requirement. So as long as you have a GED and some technical experience and training, like what i.c.Stars is doing, you can get into tech and start making really decent money fairly quickly. I would say, in your case, it's about 4 months.
And what technology needs is people who think differently.
Absolutely.
So I think part of what we've been talking about in this conversation is, we need to move beyond the status quo if we're going to innovate, if we're going to make amazing products We need people who haven't been thinking the same way we've always been thinking. So,
Absolutely.
in other words, we're looking for you. We're looking
Yes.
for you to join technology. And there are lots of great organizations like i.c.Stars or like Year Up or like Kerstolis that are training us in technology and helping us find jobs in a very challenging world of work. There is a bright light in technology.
Yes. Absolutely. Tell me about your woman to men stats.
So we fluctuate between like 30 and 40% women to men. And I'll tell you a quick story. So the gender imbalance is real, and it's not just in white culture; it's everywhere. And that really the challenge that I see is in how we support women while women are learning and doing. So here's my example. So we've got a really strict attendance policy. So you can't be late or absent or you're fired from i.c.Stars. And what that does is it shines a light on all the things in our life that are pulling us away from where we should be. All those things that are kind of, taking us off track, or things that don't support us. And so, one morning I get a call from somebody's mother, and she says, "Is Jerry there?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm looking right at him. Why?" And she says, "Because he didn't want to get out of bed this morning. I dumped a bucket of ice water on his head. And I said, 'You're going to i.c.Stars. You get up and you go,' And so I just want to make sure he was there. And I said, 'Yes, ma'am, he's here.' He's looking a little grumpy, but he's here." Okay, so that's a story about the mom, like, she's not going to let him ruin this opportunity or blow it. Like a year later, we had a student who was just brilliant, like the top of her class in technology and in business. It just was killing it across the board. And she was coming home every night talking about, "Oh my God, I met the CIO from CNA and he just talked about this huge SAP implementation," right? Like, she was speaking differently and talking in technology acronyms and whatnot. And her boyfriend was starting to feel like, "Oh my gosh, like, I don't even know this person. Is she growing out of me?" Right? And so one morning he unplugged her alarm clock so she would be late. And she calls, she says, "I'm going to be late. My alarm clock," all of this. And my whole staff was like, "Oh my God, Sandee, don't do it. Don't you do this." But we had to let her go.
Are you serious?
And yeah.
I mean, are you serious? Like, it's such a sad story.
Well, so the ending is not as sad. So
okay,
she left the organization, and 2 years later, I get a call from her. And she said, "Sandee, I've owed you this call for a long time, and I just want to thank you. Because had you not fired me that day, I would have told myself that it was okay and taken him back. But what it did was it showed me what was really important in my life and what the detractors were from me reaching my goals." Now, I'm not going to say that it was easy. It was totally hard, and I really had to, like, kick some butt. But today I'm happy to say that I'm a business analyst, and I love my job. I love my work, and I'm grateful that you taught me how to teach myself.
Oh my God, that's such a beautiful story. And at the same time, I totally you know what? You give me some great inspiration for my parenting. That's all I'm gonna say, because I am the mom who would have been like, okay, this one time, it's fine. And sometimes, tough love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was tough. Like, but who wants to make these decisions? Like, the girl was awesome, brilliant, lovely, like, and, but that moment that we don't even think about, right? Like she, it's just really powerful. And I think also over and over again, these two scenarios play themselves out. Like for guys, they have the support. There's someone who's like, by hook or by crook, you're going to get there. And for our women, we see growth as a threat, right?
And we get our alarms plugged and our community's turning all of a sudden and she wants to be better than anybody else.
Yeah, she thinks she's better than us, and now you're too good for us.
Mm-hmm. It's a hard shift.
It is, and I think that it's also a shift for us individuals as women, but also a shift for us in thinking about how we support other women.
Mm.
And that, we have to stop seeing it as one person at a time. And it's all of us. Like, if we're going to make a dent in sort of this gender dynamic, we have to realize that we're all in this together. And there's not just space for one of us. And then, we have to hate each other or anything. Like, we've got to be able to support each other, because guess what? Like, for all of us to get here, it wasn't easy,
Oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes to all of it. Yes, absolutely. Like there's no more leaving women behind. No more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to be perfect, but that's the intent. That's the sentiment, I think, behind all of it. And so, okay. So you're I would love to wrap it up with this beautiful story, but I must ask is like, how or what actions have your organization or are you proposing communities to take in order to give women that support? And maybe have you thought about some of the things that your organization is doing to support women so that your women participation numbers could potentially increase in the future?
So I'll wrap it up with kind of a funny story.
Yes.
So we're very clear that at i.c.Stars is a queenocracy. The founder is a woman. And so what does that mean? Does that mean like we get the big piece of chicken? Yes. And what it really means is that we are teaching men to be advocates for women. So we have a rule at i.c.Stars that no woman can clean the kitchen. Mm. And that in every cohort, there's a guy designated as the kitchen man. Now, what happens is every time you assign, you're the kitchen man, they're like, what? This is terrible. This is embarrassing. This is, awful. It's humiliating. And, the question is, so if it's so awful and humiliating, who's cleaning up after you? Mm. And what does that mean? How are you honoring and respecting that person? Because for every minute that we are in the kitchen cleaning up or preparing the table for other people to eat, we're feeding ourselves last. And when it comes to learning, that means that we're learning last. We're building last. We're making last. We're leading last. We're doing all of that last. And we're pushing back the starting line. And so as men, how can we support women so that starting line, we're all starting at the same place? Mm-hmm. So the kitchen man, and now this is very hard for all of us to like walk by and not wash that cup that's in the sink. It's very hard for us not even like take a mug out of the cupboard and not look in it to make sure it's clean. So we have to actually learn to trust that these men will take care of us in a way that we have been taking care of them for so long.
That is beautiful.
And it's there's a song.
Yeah.
So when the kitchen is messy, when the kitchen is clean, we sing the kitchen man song, and it goes like this. Kitchen man cleans the kitchen, and the kitchen is so clean. Kitchen man cleans the kitchen, cleanest kitchen ever seen. Oh, kitchen man, how we love how we love our kitchen man.
Oh, that's amazing. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for doing the work that you do, for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and sharing the work that i.c.Stars is doing in Chicago for underrepresented communities and folks, and hopefully to give opportunities to those folks to do great things in their lives, regardless of where they're from, with zip code they live in. And I appreciate you so much, Sandee. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening to our funny song.
Woo! There you have it. I hope you liked this episode, and please don't forget to share, like, comment on the podcast link. Tell all your networks and friends and family about it. Submit a recommendation for guests at www.unbossed.io. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Donate by clicking on the anchor link and help me continue to make great episodes. You can find all this information on www.unbossed.io. See you next time.
Oh, that was good.